And we are live. Hey guys. So we are back for another edition of some real estate development talk. And I will say that you guys are really liking this. I've been getting people DM me and messaging me, just very appreciative of the content that I've been providing. So I'm happy that you guys are learning from this and that I can, help in any kind of way. Tonight, I talked about this last night in the live where I said I'll go through the market conditions, and the cycles. I want everybody to understand what cycle we are in so that you can make the most informed decision if you are thinking about acquiring land or a house or just getting into real estate development in general. I want you to understand how you should be buying property, or the best way to buy property right now as based on the cycle that we're in the real estate market. So I want to draw a graph, and this graph is essentially what the market is doing at any point in time. Like, you can go back all the way to the 80s. It always does this same cycle. It will never change. The only thing that would change about this particular cycle is the time frame. So we can never predict how long we'll be in certain places, but we can always predict that when we are going to another stage of the cycle, what it would look like. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It's actually going to start here. Okay, so this is the ebb and flow of it. It's going to start to go up, then it's going to come down, then it's going to go up again. Okay, so what does that mean to you? Let me just show you what that means actually. Okay, so here, as it's going up, it's called, I should have did it here, optimism. I can't even spell it. Optimism. Okay, optimism. That is when the market is starting to get lukewarm or hot. People are getting really excited about inventory that they can afford. Interest rate starts to get lower, so there's more buyers on the market, and they are ready to buy. Sellers are starting to get excited again about selling. Okay, the next part. So actually, excitement. All right, or slash lukewarm. This is when the market is starting to really heat up. Sellers are really starting to realize that, you know what, if I'm thinking about moving or buying my dream home, maybe they're in a starter home and they're thinking about buying their dream home. This is when they start having that discussion because they're starting to see interest rates come down more. They're starting to see buyers pay market value, list price, or over list price for properties. So this is when you're going to start to see that excitement, okay? And then when we're at the peak, at the very top, that's euphoria. Okay? Euphoria. That's a red hot market. We know what that feels like. We've all seen it right now. So euphoria is when we're at the really high point of the market, when people are, basically going to beg you for their property. There's a lot of buyers, hardly any sellers, or there is a lot of demand and hardly any supply. That's when you're at the very top. And that's when people start to overpay for property in order to get in. And a lot of times it is because, like we just saw, like interest rates, money is cheap. They can get in at a really great interest rate. So they're buying. So that's where you're going to have euphoria. Okay. So when you start to come down, this is when you have denial. Okay. When you're on the denial part of the cycle, what that means is now you are starting to see interest rates go up. There are some buyers that are pulling back. Now, there's still people buying, but they're not buying as heavily as they used to, simply because they can't get the interest rate, or money is not as cheap as it used to be. Okay, so you're going to see some denial. But now the biggest thing with denial is the sellers. Sellers are still going to feel like they're in the euphoria because they really don't remember anything significantly changing to make it go down to denial. So you're going to still see things that are going to be overpriced, or really not over. Well, you're going to see they're going to be expecting anything, everything, right? They're going to be looking for things over list price. This is where you're going to see the denial happening, okay? When when the market has actually shifted, but sellers are not going to accept it just yet, okay? That's denial. And then you get down to fear, okay? Fear is now where, okay, seller, I haven't been able to sell my property yet. I thought I could because I was planning to sell it when it was in the euphoria part, but it was stayed on the market, and I'm still in denial, and it's still on the market. Now I'm panicking because I needed to sell my property for a specific reason. Maybe you just got a job and need to move. Maybe you were building a house, and you thought your house would be finished and you can sell at the top of the market. Maybe you were, maybe you got behind on payments and you thought you can sell your house before the lease payment set in, which is basically before they start to try to call your note due. Okay, so that is fear. Fear is usually when sellers realize that there's more inventory now on the market than there is demand, and I have to now get a little bit more competitive with my pricing. All right, and then you go into panic. Panic means your house has just been on the market way too long. You don't really have any other alternatives. You ran out of all of your cushion. You don't know what else to do. You start to drop prices. There's not as much buyers. You're going to have to give concessions now, seller credit. You're going to do whatever you can to make your property competitive on the market because you need to get out of your property, okay? That's when panic starts to set in, okay? That's when you start to see, and then so when we get down here, depression. So depression is when we just cannot sell our property. Okay. Depression is when we are willing to sell it for pennies on the dollar, willing to sell it for what we have in it. We're willing to basically figure out any kind of way or just give it back to the bank if you have a mortgage. Okay. That is depression. That is when there is more inventory on the market than there are buyers, and you have no other option but to either wait for a buyer to find your house desirable, or come to an agreement of an offer, or walk away from it. That is depression, okay? And then as we go back up, you start to have hope. So as things start to correct themselves, as the market starts to correct itself, you start to see more buyers enter back into the market. You start to see interest rates kind of leveling itself out. That's when you start to see hope. Okay, that is in that area. Okay, and then you get right back to optimism. Okay, so it's going to start and always begin at optimism. Okay, so that is the market cycles of every market that we'll ever be in the real estate industry. So you should remember this when you're thinking about buying or selling. Like, decide what cycle we are in. You can usually tell by the behaviors of a seller or a buyer. All right, so now that I've labeled out what the market cycle is doing, let's talk about what is a seller's market and what is a buyer's market, okay? So obviously, when we talk about optimism, excitement, euphoria, this area here, so through optimism, through euphoria. Okay, this is seller's market. And you know what? I would even put in denial. Even though there's some denial, there's still a seller's market there because, and I say that because in denial, there's still going to be a lack of inventories per se, but not as much. There's going to be still a more demand than there is inventory, but there is going to be a correction at that point because buyers are willing to wait to get it because they just simply can't afford it and the denial. Okay, so there's still somewhat of a seller's market going on when you're in euphoria, excitement. I'm sorry, of optimism, excitement, euphoria, and denial. You're still in the seller's market. Okay, when do you start to get in the buyer's market? So when you're in the buyer's market, can you see that? Everybody see that? Okay, buyer's market. That is when you are in the fear through hope. Okay? When you're in fear through hope, you're in a buyer's market. Why? Because there is now more inventory than there is demand. And you can start to negotiate terms. You can request seller concessions. You can request incentives, credit. You can pick and choose what properties you want. You can also use cash because a lot of them will be, you probably get some opportunities for a discount on here. So that's when you're going to see fear, panic, depression, and hope is where you're going to see a buyer's market. Okay. So next thing I want to go through is when have we seen these cycles in the past? So most of us, according to when we were born, most of us have seen these cycles before. So we saw the optimism through euphoria. If we just go back even just a little over a decade ago, gosh, it doesn't even feel like it's a decade ago. Gosh, it does not feel like it's a decade. Oh, is it backwards? Showing on your screen? Oh, sorry. Dang it. I know that I think it's showing. Let me see if I can. Man. I don't know how you can mirror my screen here. Let's see. Let me hold on a second. Let me see how I can get on Instagram. They're saying everything is backwards. Nope, that doesn't work. That's just gonna turn the camera around. Shucks, y'all. I don't know how to mirror it. If you join me on, I don't know how to mirror it on my screen, but if you go onto YouTube or Instagram, sorry, if you go to YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, not Instagram, but if you go to Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, you can see it this way. Not sure. I'm not sure how to flip it, how to mirror it. But just going through here, optimism, excitement, euphoria, denial. So when do we see these cycles in the previous years? So when we were in optimism, excitement, and euphoria, okay? So through the years, we were in a high euphoria in about 2005 through 2007. Okay. That's when we were in euphoria. We were in a hot market. People were flipping stuff, buying 3 or 4 houses. It was super easy to get financing, and they were buying everything in euphoria in the 2005, 2007 part of the market. Okay. When did we come into denial? In denial, we were in denial. You know, if you look at the movie Big Short, I watch this movie all the time because I just think it's so fascinating how, because I'm really a data numbers person, it's very fascinating to me that someone predicted this years before based on simple data that they went through from 2003 2004 to 2005. They predicted it then. Um so we were in denial, even though we were still kind of in a hot market. We were in denial around that 2007 through 2008. I don't know if you remember, but in 2007 I was in college, and I remember getting a check, a stimulus check. If you remember, I don't know if let me know. Drop a comment in the comments if you remember getting that stimulus check. I was in college. We got a stimulus check. We got two actually, and the first one was in like 2007. And I remember this was like their way of trying to stop everything from happening. They were trying to stimulate the economy. They were trying to get people to spend more because they thought it was correct itself, and it did not. Obviously, it did not work. Okay, and so our recession that happened. The reason why it happened so quickly is really, if you watch The Big Short, you saw that there was a lot of fraud that was going on. So that's why everything felt like it was sped up. But if it had ran its natural course, and the market did what it was normally should have done without big pharma, big hedge funds trying to manipulate it, it would have been the time frame wouldn't have been as quick. But because it was manipulated, it was quick. So we went from denial in the first part of 2008 and 2007 to fear in 2008, and then panic in 2008. And then we were in a full on, not a depression, but a recession by 2009. The bottom fell out in 2009. Okay, so that's how quick it happened. But again, it happened so quick because everybody was like, people were manipulating. You know, they were shorting, and they were reporting wrong numbers. Like, go back and watch the movie The Big Short. It is one of my favorite movies, because I love to geek out on real estate in that way. And so if you remember that, that is what cycle we were in. Okay, so depression. So after depression, we were really in a depression between 2009 and 2011. So that was a really great time to buy property if you had cash, because you can get it literally pennies on the dollars. That's when you could buy up all your cash. That's how, honestly, a lot of people that got rich right now or have all these properties, they were buying up properties that had cash. Okay, so that was in 2009, 2011. All right. So when did we start to come out of that? When we started to come out of that, that was more, it felt like more 2000 and really like 2014 through 2018. Okay. 2014, 2018, the market we started to have hope again. You started to see builders build again. You started to see people buy their first homes again with financing. There were more jobs that came onto the market. So people were back becoming employed again that have been unemployed for a very long time, or underemployed for a very long time. So in 2004, 2018, you started to see people build more inventory, and you started to see people buy houses. And then once we got back out of that, 2019 through really 2018 through 2020, early part of 2020 is when you had optimism. And then and ironically enough, 2020 through 2021, you seen a complete euphoria where you saw the market is just like on fire, going crazy. Interest rates are super low. Federal reserves had dropped the rates to zero almost. And so you saw people putting in contracts and buying property like crazy. If you were in the real estate market like I was, you should have been making some good money. Okay. Whether you were selling houses, flipping houses, investing in houses, whatever you were doing, you should have been making some really great money in real estate. Because those cycles, those times in the market don't come around just every year. They come around in these type of cycles where it is between anywhere between 15, 20 years. I'll take that back because nobody really knows time frames. It changes because market conditions in the world changes. Nobody knows when we're going to go into a war. Nobody knows when we're going to have famine because of environmental issues. All these affect the market in a big way. So you never really know how long we will stay in any part of this cycle, but just know when it does happen, this is how it's going to flow. You're going to go through optimism, excitement, euphoria, and then you're going to go to denial, fear, and then you're going to go into panic and depression, and then you're going to go back up to hope and optimism. It's always going to flow this way. It could be this way in a month. It could be this way in 20 years. Okay. So this is the time frames. Now, questions. I'll give you a few. Okay. So when is it? We went over when is a seller's market. We went over when is a buyer's market. So you know that buyers are going to be, or sellers are going to be more realistic on their pricing when, because if there is a seller's market here is when sellers are going to be more realistic on their pricing, when it's getting into fear, panic, depression, and hope. Okay. That's the part where you're going to really pick up some good deals because now sellers have to sell. They have to figure out a way. Okay. And this is really good as well if you want to do creative financing, because usually interest rates are higher during this period of time. So it's really great to do some creative financing, taking over someone's payment, figuring out how to do some owner financing so that you can keep as much as your cash to go and find more property, more land. This is the good time to do the owner financing strategy. When else is this a good time? Fear, panic, depression, hope. The other times to really buy up property for cash is bank-owned properties or bank-owned land. Because why? Banks are going to be trying to clear their books. They don't want to have another 2009 happen to them. If you ever tried to buy a bank-owned property during this time, you probably realize you didn't get much of a deal because there's no real reason for them to sell at a discounted rate because the market is high. They know they just need to fix it up and put it back on the market just like any other investor. But here is where you want to look at getting bank-owned properties and even picking up some pre-foreclosures because there are going to be plenty of them to choose from and you're going to be able to get them for pennies on the dollar. So this is when you want to pick up your bank-owned properties, your pre-foreclosures, and things of this nature. When do you not want to flip properties? Now, again, if you are able to get it into the property at a very like pennies on the dollars, you do not want to flip properties here. Really, no. You don't want to flip properties here at the top of the market. When you know that it's the peak and we've tapped out. So here's how you know that we're at the top of the market. When rental rates have hit the ceiling, which we've noticed, like it's really tough to charge more for rent than what we can get out of the property. That's when rental rates have hit the ceiling, even though we're still going up, but rental rates are just about at the top of where they can go. People are already paying on average $15, $18, $2,000 for rent for properties that are only worth about $200,000. We're hit it. So when we've hit the top of the market, you don't want to flip because what's going to happen is you're going to be in the middle of a flip and then denial, fear. You don't know how long this cycle will take. You may take a bump on the head because you've bought in a property that you probably had to overpay for, and you're flipping it, and now your what you can list it for has gone down. Now, if you're a seasoned investor, you can figure out ways um, to get exit out of the flip through like lease options, um, doing some wrap mortgages, getting some private lenders in there, some other things. But just remember that that's not always an option in every property. So tread lightly if you're flipping here in the Euphoria. Make sure that you've gotten it at a really great price, because when the market starts to go down and correct itself, you're going to be hit with that profit loss. Okay. Let's see what's some other things to know about the market. We went over bank owned, we went over foreclosure, we went over flips. Oh, when is a great time to buy rentals and to lease property? You want to do that in this market, in the down market. You want to do this in the down market. Why do you want to do this on a down market? Because you're able to get property cheaper. And so that means that your cash flow, the spread between whatever, if you have to take out a mortgage, but the cash flow of what your PITI, which is your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, that spread between what you're getting in rent is going to be larger. And then if you've already gotten the property at a very low rate, once it starts to go back up, it's just going to appreciate in value. So you're going to be able to either, if you need to refinance and pull cash out to go buy more property, or if rents are going up, you'll be able to widen that spread that you have each month for cash flow. So you want to really buy heavily for rental property right here in the fear, panic, depression, and hope. This goes also for land, because you can find a lot of different ways to lease land out to either farmers, developers, builders. We talked a bit about that yesterday. So you want to buy land to lease or rent. You want to buy homes to lease or rent, multifamily. You want to buy all that here where you can get it super, super, super cheap. Okay. So that's the best time to lease or rent property or buy rental property. I think that is all the things that I wanted to cover for tonight. Are there any questions? Hello, Derek. How are you? Um, are there any questions that I have? I know this is flipped on Instagram. I'm so sorry. Um, that sucks. I don't know how to flip it. I'm gonna have to figure that out when I do another chart of how we can mirror it next time. But are there any other questions about the market segment, the cycles? What do we have? Let's see here. Hey, CJ. Let's see here. I think some people left because they're. Thanks, Brandon. How are you, Brandon? So let me know what you think about this. If you have any questions about this. So, biggest question is where do I think we are in the market right now? Obviously. So where we are in the market right now, we're in denial. Okay. We're in denial. But here's the thing. Do I think we're going to get all the way down here? Not yet. Now, I'm not a psychic. I can't predict things, because there's a lot of things that can happen that push us this way. I think we're in denial and we'll probably stay here for a little while, because in the denial, what's beautiful about denial is that it causes a market correction. And that's what we're going towards right now. Interest rates were the lowest they've been they're record low, as far as what you can get a property for. I mean, I know I sold property to people that had a 1.7, 1.75 interest rate. Like crazy. They are swimming in equity at this point. Okay. So I think we're going to be here in denial for a little while. What can cause us to go to fear, panic, and depression? Where there's a lot of different things. If they can't correct inflation, it's going to push more buyers out of the market, and you're going to see a lot more inventory. But it's not going to be the same as what we experienced back in 2005, 2007, because the subprime fraud that was happening in the financial industry, That's not happening now. Okay. People have to actually go through, they actually have to have credit score, W-2s, and a certain DTI in order to get approved for a loan. Okay, so there's not just a stated doc fees, stated income fees, stated income documents anymore. So there is an actual process to get approved for loans. So you're not going to, what we don't have is we don't have a lot of people in homes that bought homes during that 2000, during this period, or during the 2018 to 2020, that can't afford the home that they're in. And they are locked in on, a lot of them are locked in on fixed interest rates. That means that for 30 years, they're going to have that interest rate. Now, one thing that I do want you to know is that, one thing that I do want you to know is that towards this 2020, no, actually towards the 2021 top part of it, what I noticed from qualified buyers is that they were on a 10-year fixed and an ARM, which is an adjustable rate mortgage. That means that after 10 years, that payment is going to balloon. That's possibly when you're going to start to see fear, panic. You're probably going to see some missed payments. You're probably going to see some more foreclosures in about the 10 years, in about 2031, 2032, 2033. My thinking is because when those arms start to adjust and people cannot pay that anymore, if they bought too much house, you're going to start to see more property come onto the market. And then that's when you're going to go get back into this cycle again, unless some other factors that are beyond our control, like war or famine or environmental issues, take place. But just take note of that. Ask some of your friends that bought in 2021, how many of them bought with an arm, a fixed arm? Why did banks start doing that? Is because they had issued out so many securities, between those periods when there were low interest rates, that when they start looking at their futures, they realized that, oh gosh, we're not going to be able to sustain ourselves. We have basically given out too much money at too much of too low of an interest rate, and they're not going to be making money. So they started to adjust the way that they were, giving mortgages to, and they were putting people in arms, and people were still buying it because they wanted that low interest rate. So keep out for that. That will, I do believe, in about 10 to 11 years, you're going to see people, you're going to see more houses hitting the market, and we'll probably get back into this fear, panic, and depression. But for now, you will see more inventory hit the market because, we're going to get in between this area here. I know people are always talking about recession, recession, recession. Again, there could be a recession that happens. But what I would say in the real estate market, just from me seeing firsthand and working with qualified buyers and working with people that have cash, people with the investors with cash are just not going to buy over price anymore. They're going to buy at the corrected market price. Now, they're not going to overbuy because appraisers are not going to appraise over, and banks, the money is just too expensive. So you're going to see, that correction. You're going to see a little bit more opportunity to get in on some property. You may have some opportunity to get into some discounted property because, what we do have that's kind of a part of here is foreclosures hitting the market, because everyone that stopped paying their mortgage in 2020 during COVID is catching up with them now, and they can't repay. I am seeing a lot of people that have 30, they're behind 30, 40, $50,000 in mortgage payments because they haven't paid in almost 2 years, and you get those hit with those late fees. And so we are seeing investors that are being able to pick up some of these pre-foreclosures from people that have not been paying their mortgage during the COVID relief. Whenever that act was up, I knew that there are going to be more foreclosures, and there are definitely more foreclosures hitting the market. They're actually up by 700% from what we've seen in the last 2 years. Okay. But again, that is a problem in the market. It's that they always were going to lose their house. They just had a little bit more time to stay in their house. So it wasn't necessarily a market issue. Okay. Are there any questions? Oh, who we got? Can't see the background. Can't see the background on IG. Do you refinance after the 10-year mark? Do you refinance after the 10-year mark? It depends on the interest rates. If you can refinance. So just remember, when you refinance, you're essentially restarting your loan, and they're going to pull a credit score. They're going to look at your DTI again. They're going to look at everything just as you were going to purchase that home again. So you still have to have those numbers. And in 10 years, if the interest rates are back low again, then I would consider refinancing. If they are not, then it really doesn't help you unless you can get a fixed rate and you look at your amortization schedule and you look at what the next 20 years looks like on your amortization schedule and what those payments would continue to jump to, versus if you can get a fixed rate and what those payments will look like. Then you would decide whether you want to refinance, or you would just decide to sell at that by the 10-year mark whenever they are about to adjust themselves. Just to get out of the arm. Yes, if you can. Yes, if you can get out of the arm. If you can find a mortgage broker that can give you a fixed rate that where your payments can look the same as what you're paying now, then I would suggest you doing that. So make sure when you're hitting that 10-year mark that your credit looks really great and your DTI is great. I wouldn't go out and buy a lot of large items or make large purchases around that 10-year mark when your arm is about to balloon. And they would give you a notice too to let you know that your payments are about to change. Yeah. Would you need a down payment? Possibly. Depends on how much equity you have in your property. So if you have accumulated some equity in your property, then you can use that equity in your property to pay the down payment. But if you are in negative equity, it's going to be you're going to need to bring some money to the table to cover closing costs. Any other questions? Those are really great questions, Derek. I like them. Any other questions? I hope this was helpful. Y'all had some really good questions. This was a long overdue. I'm gonna do a better one, like where it's like really neat and maybe on a actual typed out, so you guys can see this on YouTube. So because these were some really good questions, and I incorporate some questions into the YouTube video. So never get an arm. Depends on what you want to do with the property. My very first mortgage, I got an arm. However, and I had an arm so my interest rate was 4.75. This was back in 2010. My interest rate was 4.75, and my arm adjusted to just over 5. It went up like a quarter of a percentage. So my payments essentially went up about 60 to 70 bucks. So if the adjustable rate makes sense, then and you look at your amortization schedule, but you got to look at it for the next 30 years. I had always planned, though, the reason why I went in with an adjustable rate mortgage is because, and it wasn't 10 years, it was like 2 years. Because I had always planned to flip my property, because I bought a pre-foreclosure and I fixed it up, and that was my first personal owned property, and I'd already planned to exit before I got to where the payments hit a certain amount. So if you're planning to stay forever, you want to look at the entire 30 years and say to yourself, if I had the same job, I never got a promotion, and life kind of looked the same way, could I still afford these payments? And if the answer is yes, then you can go with an adjustable rate mortgage. But if you are, already at the top of what you can pay and you're not sure about job security, then I would say no, because if you can't afford it now, who knows what may happen, because we're going to be getting older. We might get sicker. We might have some things happen to us that will cause those, by the time we hit those 30 years, that we can't afford our mortgage anymore. We don't want that to happen. Yeah, it's 2 years. So they were trying to just get people in there, and so like 4.75. I know it doesn't. It's about what it is now, but back then that was a great rate. Like that was an awesome rate, and back then, because banks wasn't loaning toward anybody. Banks wasn't loaning toward anybody really, and I was a young whippersnapper. So yeah. But I was already in real estate investing, so I definitely wanted to. And I found this pre-foreclosure that was in a great area, and I was like, I want it. So I went with whatever my because I thought I might have kept it for a rental, and I looked at the schedule and I thought that even if I kept it for a rental for the amount of time, then I can still make some spread in the middle. I was like, worst case scenario, I can still make 150 to 200 bucks a month if I was to keep this house and I moved out of it. So that's how I looked at it when I looked at it. It's really important to look at your amortization schedule. A lot of people don't look at that as closely, but that is the real guts of everything, because that is what you will be paying each month for the next 30 years of that loan. And you have to make sure that you can afford that. Today, it's very important to pay attention to that, versus what rate you can get and what payment you're paying now. What payment will you pay in the future? These are some great questions. I think I covered everything that I wanted to talk to you guys about. So now we know when to buy property, we know when to sell property, we know when to flip property, and we have a great understanding, based on my opinion, of where the property is right now. And so I talk a lot about real estate development and building. So the same rules apply. It's actually always a great time to build. It really is. You just have to understand your numbers. I was talking to a developer this morning, and we were talking about he was talking about how he purchases property, and right now he's already purchasing property at owner finance and seller finance, because as far as land is, if houses are in denial, land is always a little bit harder to sell, just because a lot of people don't know what to do with just raw land or vacant land. That is a specific buyer for that market. So he's already buying at owner finance, but it was not because we're in a panic or denial, but he's more closer to the we're more closer to the fear. So we're able to talk to sellers about some owner finance deals, because if they thought they would be able to sell their land for top dollar, they can't now. Like they absolutely can't now. And if they think they can, let them hold on to their land a little longer and come back later. I promise you they will change their mind. So you can still build. They're still building houses. We're still developing land, but you just have to make sure you get in on the deal at the right numbers. The reason why a lot of builders went out of business in after 2007 and 2009 is because they were going out purchasing all this land, starting all these projects, dumping all this money in at one time. Now builders do it much differently. They're only buying the land that they're going to immediately build on. They're doing first rights or refusals, and they're rolling out projects in phases. And that's a much smarter way to do it. And the land that they're building on, 10 times out of 9, they have owner financed it with the specific owner. A lot of them, unless they can get it really cheap, are not buying the land full market value, all cash, or even getting a loan on it. They are working out deals with the landowner, and they're building in phases, and they're buying in phases, And that way they don't have so much capital. Their burn rate is not as high. And so that's why they learned a lot from this area. A lot of builders that were able to stick in the game, they learned a lot from this era. And now they have different ways of how they conduct business. And that's why they can continue to buy land. But the persons that you are talked to, they're probably getting out of it is because they're either a smaller builder that don't have enough access to capital to build to buy the materials, because materials are up by a lot, and it's really tough to purchase one lot and build on it, or two lots and build on it. You have to almost have at least 10 houses that you're building at the same time, because that's where you're going to see some discounts, and you can work out some like invoice credits with your suppliers and your vendors. But it's really tough to build one house and think you got to make some money on it. It's just very tough unless you're building it for someone specifically that's willing to pay you upfront for it. How long have I been a realtor? I've only been a realtor for 3 years. So my story is I never thought I would be a realtor, because I never thought I needed to, because I was already in real estate investing and I knew like what I needed to know in order to get into my own properties. So I never thought I needed to be a realtor. And then when I got the opportunity to work with a builder, I had to have my license, because in the state of Alabama, you have to, in order to sell someone else's property, you have to have your license. So I got my license specifically to do new construction and to do development. And then I got my broker's license last year. So haven't been a realtor long. I've been in real estate investing since 2009, but I've only been a realtor since 2019. They're building they're building everywhere. I mean, because the thing is we still have a shortage in supply. Like, we still have people that are looking to rent property, buy property. We still have a shortage. There's not a lack of houses. That's the difference as well. We just need a correction in prices. We've been overpriced for a very long time, and we're just having a correction. Never have I seen, until I started selling new construction, where property were literally appreciating by the tens and thousands within months. I mean, we would start building someone's house, and their house would appreciate by 60 to 70 grand in a matter of 10 to 11 months. That was crazy. That never has happened. So we just have a correction as they work out the interest rates and control inflation. Then we'll be able to see some correction, but we still have a need for supply. We're just not going to be able to it's just not going to be overpriced anymore. But yeah, they're building everywhere. Everywhere. Hey, Earl, you gonna check me off my accountability partner here? Antoinette. Hey, girl. Okay. All right. So I am going to sign off, and tomorrow, let me know in the DMs what you guys want to hear from me next. I will come back to you tomorrow with some more good stuff for you to learn about real estate development. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.